So here we go. Let's talk about merge fields for AFrame. So I'm going to sort of start at the beginning, and then we're going to very quickly sort of get into how all of these merge field codes work. At a high level, clearly merge field codes are there to pull data out of AFrame or out of AFrame, well, pretty much a transaction, and put that data inside an email, and then also allows you to manipulate some of those auto-adjusting dates, right? So these can be very powerful to make your workflows more efficient, especially when you're putting those emails together. And then also when you're using tasks and dates and want to auto-adjust based off custom dates within your transaction. So I'm also going to talk how all of them work together because they do sort of intermix depending on where you have all of these set up. So let's kind of get started. So from a high level, we actually have a number of predefined merge field codes in our system. And of course, you can create custom merge field codes as well. Examples of predefined merge field codes would be current date, user-first name, team address, property address. You know, these are the sort of high-level merge field codes that already exist in the system. You're not creating anything custom. And for those of you who are completely new to our merge field code system, you'll notice this $sign everywhere. This is the precursor to every merge field code. If you're editing emails, and we'll demonstrate this in a second, if you're editing emails or want to look at merge field codes, the minute you press that $sign is when that little drop down will come up, and every merge field code will start with a $sign. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about custom merge field codes. How do you create those? And we're going to get into this in a second, but custom merge field codes are created when you manipulate the templates, right? So as you create your date templates in the admin area, as you add those custom dates, it will automatically add a merge field code for the date that you've added in a template. So this is true for date templates. For example, we've got this D_ inspection date. That's obviously a custom date, not something specific to our system. This is true for attachment templates. So here we have A_ for attachment and executed contract. The other custom merge field code prefixes can be generated or created within participant roles. So if you've created any roles in your system, or if you're not familiar with roles, inside a transaction, you can add a number of people to the transaction. There are a set of default roles like seller, buyer, agent on the other side, escrow. You can create as many roles as you want. As you create those roles, clearly those become merge field codes, which sort of signifies, if you can see here, role-contact field. So as you create, for example, escrow officer, then you'll have a number of contact fields available to you as suffixes for those merge field codes. Hopefully that makes sense. I think it will here in just a little bit. And the last sort of section where you can create custom merge field codes is within custom fields. Again, that is in the admin template area as well. So as you create custom collections, groups, or fields, then those will be available to you as a merge field code for your email templates. So I've already alluded to this in the previous slide, but I just wanted to be clear about most of the custom merge field codes have a prefix. In fact, I think all of them do. So dates, if you create a custom date merge field code, it's going to start with $D_ for date. Same is true for attachments, $A_. The transaction participant roles have this pattern to it, right? So $, the role, dash, and some sort of contact field. That could be first name, last name, email, mailing address, you name it. And then last but not least, you have the fields. And if you're not familiar with fields, well, if you've used a transaction in AFrame, you're familiar with fields, but you may not be familiar with the custom fields. When you create custom fields, we have 3 layers for our fields in AFrame, and it helps you organize the fields in general. So we have a field collection, which is the top level, which begin with FC_. We have field groups, and then we have the actual field itself. And I'll get into one of the cooler parts of the merge field codes that involves field groups here in just a second. Okay, so I wanted to sort of get into merge field date suffixes. So once you are starting to use a merge field code, there are some suffixes that allow you to sort of change the format of the presentation of the data therein. So if we look at merge field code suffixes for dates, there's a number of suffixes here that I want to just briefly talk about. The first one is no suffix at all. So if you merge a closing date for a transaction, it's actually just going to print out this date. Now, this is kind of a, I don't want to say advanced, but almost maybe a hidden feature, is you can actually format the way this date is presented. And I'll actually show you where that is here inside AFrame, just while we're talking about it. If I go into the team settings for an AFrame account, and I go to transaction settings, you'll notice that I can actually tell AFrame how I want my default dates formatted. Now, this is an account-wide setting. So if you like to have, 1/1/2023, have at it. If you like a little more long form type presentation, then we've got a number of options that you can sort of select from. I personally like to have the day in there. I think a lot of what we do, they need to know what the day is sometimes. Not everybody knows what January 1st is. And if it's a Sunday versus a Monday, that could be pretty important. So that's my personal preference, but you guys can do whatever you like there. So let's go back here. So that's for the default closing date presentation. Now, the other sort of suffixes we have for dates, we've got the start date, which just takes the date itself. Now, you might think, well, that's the same thing as closing date. However, when you add a time to it, the closing date would actually say January 1st, 2025, 1 p.m. So if you just want that date, you're going to do a suffix start date. The next suffix we have in regards to dates is start date ord, or ordinal, right? So that's first, second, third, fourth. And this is important, and I'll show you here in a second, where if you want to get sort of conversational in your emails, you can use this suffix, which will present as Wednesday, January 1st. So I'll show you that, but you can sort of imagine your closing has been set for, and then Wednesday, January 1st. It makes a little bit more conversational emails rather than January 1, 2025. The next suffix is the start time, so it just isolates the time itself. And then we also have a location suffix, which will take the date location field. So if you've set a closing date for a transaction and you've got a start date and you've got a start time, but you also have the location, then this will take the location, whatever you've entered into that field. And last but not least is the formula. And why would you ever need this? Well, sometimes in an email, you might want to say, your earnest money is due, within 3 business days from the effective date. And you can't do that if you don't have some sort of merge field code pulling that information. So what the formula does is actually pull that date formula that you've set up for that date, and now you can enter that into your merge field code or into your email. So it sort of displays conversational, and they sort of know why that date is due when it's due. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll demo this in just a little bit. We have some other suffixes that are pretty cool. I talked mentioned briefly about field groups and their formatting. We have, if you think about, I'll just show you here in a transaction. If you think about a transaction and the merge field codes are the fields that apply to merge field codes, you actually have these groups. So if you've used the info tab, you'll notice the top part are the collections, so you can switch between collections. And then within the collections, you've got groups, and then obviously you have your individual fields underneath. So these merge field codes that apply to a group, which are merge field code listing details - grid and -list, you can actually print out every one of these individual fields in one merge field code. So I'll demonstrate that here in a second, but it really makes for, let's say, your closing summaries to really come together. So like, for example, you could create a closing summary in an email template, and one of those might say closing information, and you could have everything from, well, if we look here, let's just say we had listing details. It would have everything from the MLS ID, lockbox, security, occupancy, remarks, the whole bit, just in that section, and you wouldn't have to do a thing other than put a single merge field code. We'll demonstrate that here in a second, but just know that there's some really neat things you can do with merge field groups or field groups. So the last ones I wanted to point out here are portal filters. And these are specific to two merge field codes, which are transaction events and actually transaction participants. And I'll get into this in a second, but ultimately the suffixes here will allow you to filter all of your transaction events based off if they should appear on the agent portal or if they should appear on the buyer and seller portal. So it gives you that sort of flexibility to say, I don't want all of my events to show up. I just want the events to show up that I think my agent should see, or I think my buyer and seller should see. So that can be pretty powerful if you really want to list all the dates, if you want to list a subset of dates rather than every date that you're tracking. Because as a TC and even an agent, there are some agents or certain dates that you track in a transaction that are really for you, not necessarily for your agent or a buyer and seller. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about contact field suffixes. These are pretty self-explanatory, but I thought I'd mention it nonetheless. Any role, you can see here $seller, $lender, $escrow. These are the roles. And then we have a number of suffixes that you can use. First names, all emails, salutation, email, mailing lists, broker number, license number. Some of these get pretty neat, and I'll demonstrate these in a second, but some of these allow you to do first names, all emails. So if you have multiple sellers in a transaction, let's say you had 4 sellers, the first names, plural, would actually take all 4 of your sellers' first names and present them in a way as if you were going to, have a dear column in an email. So it would be John, comma, Lisa, comma, Jane, comma, and George. So it's actually quite convenient when you start to use it within an email template. Okay, now here's a neat little thing that I think trips some TCs up, especially if they've come from another system. So in AFrame, if you're looking at a transaction, you'll notice that you have the option to click buyer or seller. Well, because AFrame knows what side of the transaction you're on, if you use merge field codes without a prefix like seller or buyer, AFrame will automatically assume that you're talking about the seller of this transaction because I'm on the seller side. So for example, the first name or first names, let's call it, for this particular transaction, if we use that merge field code, it would actually say John, Jane, and Lisa. Now, why would we want that instead of specifying seller or buyer for every email template? You might have some templates that are generic. They are sent both from the sell side, both from the buy side. And if you have to create a buyer template and a seller template for the exact same email, we think that's inefficient, right? So you can omit the prefix role for seller and buyer, and AFrame will automatically insert the buyer or seller depending on the side that you're on. And this, of course, smart combinations is what I just mentioned, which is if you have multiple sellers or even multiple escrow officers within a transaction, it will combine all of those in a nice sort of comma separated format there. Okay, so let's just kind of look at some of these things, testing these things on the fly. So live merge field codes exist, and what the heck are those? Well, if I go ahead and create, let's go ahead and create an email. And this is one of the neat features of AFrame where you can sort of test out these merge field codes and feel out what they are and how they work. So if I just create a blank email and I want to hit that $, you'll notice all the merge fields start to show up. And I can just literally start typing and they will filter as I type. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to do primary, not even full, and then do email. And you'll see how it starts to filter everything. And as I choose that, live merge fields happen. So if you're writing an email to an escrow company and you can't, we're actually a closer here, I think, closer, and you can't remember what their address is, simply doing those live merge field codes on the fly can be a huge time saver for you. Another thing I'll point out about live merge field codes is as you start to type, If a field or a particular role is not available to you in that transaction, then it actually will not be available in this list. That's, for a number of reasons, because ultimately you don't want nothing to show up. It would be confusing, but it does also give you the hint that, hey, if that merge field should be there, that means you haven't probably filled out that particular field or added that particular person, or even have the date applied to the transaction itself. But again, all of these, just can be merged on the fly, and it's actually a really neat sort of feature. So feel free to use that as you start to get more familiar with the merge field codes themselves. Let's see. Allow access to data you don't, yes. Okay, so we covered all that. Okay, so how do we create custom merge field codes? Let's get into that. We're going to go into the admin area, and I'm going to show you how we create participant roles, and then we're also going to look at attachment templates, the date templates, and the fields, and this is where we can actually create all of those fields themselves. So let's pop into application or an account here, and then we'll go to the admin area, and we're going to let's first go to lists. I want to show you how to just create some participant roles and show you how those merge field codes are stored and where you can kind of get all this information. So here are where the transaction participant roles are set. Just again, to reiterate where I'm at, I'm in the lists section, and then I'm under transactions in the participant roles. And this is where you're going to set up all of the roles you think you're going to need within a transaction. If you're not familiar where these roles go, I'll show you real quick. You're going to add participants under the participants tab in a transaction. So you'll see how all of these different roles can be added. And then this is your drop down to select, okay, who do I want to add? Seller, buyer, HOA contact, surveyor, attorney, etc. As you set these participant roles up, you'll notice I can add a new role. I'm just going to say, I don't know why you'd add a builder, but let's just say we're going to add a builder. Now I could customize this merge field code if I want. I actually recommend that you leave it blank, and it's just going to automatically take this title and go ahead and add that at the, let's see, where did it add it? Here it is at the top. And you'll notice it automatically adds one for you. Merge field codes are required for roles, so if you don't add one, it'll just figure one out for you, but you can certainly customize this as you see fit. And so now I've got this new role that I can work with within any transaction. I can also sort these roles. This is not really related to merge field codes, but it actually can be quite convenient. There usually is a logical order to your participant roles. So if you want to sort these in the admin area, this is actually how they will be presented in the participants tab itself. So just a little tip there. If you want your sellers first, then your buyer, then your agent on the other side, then the closer, the default sort is set up within the admin area itself. Okay, let's see. Let's go to, now we're going to do date merge field codes. So let's head away from the list, and we're actually going to go to the templates area. Now in the templates area, actually, let's start with attachments. We'll just work our way across here. So you are able to create custom merge field codes when you add attachments, when you add dates, and when you add fields to any of these templates. So first and foremost, if I'm in an attachment template, I could create a new one, but I'm just going to pick on one I've already created. If I come in here and say, okay, I actually want to add another attachment I might need, I'm just going to call it an amendment. And you'll notice that the merge field code will be blank at first. Again, you don't have to fill that out. And if I click just save, you'll notice that it did add the amendment, and it also auto-created a merge field code. So again, that's how we can use this, and I'll show you where we can use attachment merge field codes here in a second. Same is true for dates. I won't bore you too much with this, but essentially you can just add a new date, and then the same process will apply. You'll notice here that all of these date entries, this is where you can see the merge field code, earnest money due, title date, inspection period, finance date. These are the merge field codes that have been stored. Now, the neat thing about date merge field codes is once you create a date merge field code, it can now be used in date formulas in other dates and also in tasks. Most of you are aware of this, but I'll just point out how this works. So for example, if we have, let's say the inspection period, if I want to track another date based off the inspection period, well, inspection period is a custom date, but now that I've added it, I can actually go and say, okay, I'm going to say inspection period follow-up. And then of course we can use a formula. I could leave these blank or just say I want to follow up, 2 days after. And now obviously I can come in here and just search for that inspection period date. And now I've got an inspection period follow-up that will be 2 days after an inspection period date itself. And so if I click save there, you'll see that this is 2 days after the inspection period. So the reason I point that out is some people are confused on, well, wait, how do I get the inspection period up there and do a date? You just have to add whatever date you're gonna, or merge field code you're gonna use, you have to add it first in some template. It could be anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this template, but it has to be somewhere in a template. And then you're able to use that template or that merge field code for any other date. Same is true for tasks. So again, once you add one of those dates into your task template or into your date templates, you can start to use that in a task template itself. So if I come over here and just want to change this particular task, I can do date calculator, and then you'll notice I still have that inspection period or even the inspection period follow-up. So for example, if you had a task that you wanted to be based off the period follow-up, you could do that 0 days if you wanted to do on, and then click update. And of course, that task would be updated accordingly. The last place that you're going to add custom merge field codes will be in field definitions. And just as a reminder, like we talked about earlier, field definitions are organized into collections first. So I could add a new collection here, which is over here on the left. You can sort those as well. And then if I click on one of the collections, then of course you can dive into, okay, now I've got the collection here. Here is my group. And then within a group, I have a number of fields. And you'll see right here, you probably, witness this F underscore. That is your merge field code for every one of these fields, which again, if they have a merge field code, you can pop them into an email pretty easily. So, okay, so let's go back, see where we are. We talked about adding date formulas to tasks and dates. And yeah, let's jump into email templates. Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road. We've created all of these templates or these merge field codes, custom merge field codes, whatever. How do we start to use these? Well, if we actually go in and create a new email template, I'm just going to say that's template here. This starts up a new email, and this is where you can obviously start creating an email template itself, but this is where your cheat sheet is. A lot of people ask, where can I find all of the merge field codes? Well, they're right here over on the left, and we have a lot. And we have a lot more once you start adding custom. So this is quite a few. We do have a search mechanism over here. So if you just want to look for like closing date, for example, then all of the closing date fields will come up, and then you can choose from them here, right? You'll also notice that if you need a cheat sheet on participant fields, you can say, okay, what are all my escrow participant fields? Well, if you choose escrow, then it's going to actually, replace that prefix, and then you still have access to all the suffixes, which would be, I need the escrow full name, the first name, the middle name, full, anything that you can merge from a contact. So that's your cheat sheet over on the left. And I just wanted to talk briefly on these email templates on how many places you can use these merge field codes. So if we're looking at obviously the two CC or BC, you can add any email merge field code that you would like here. So for example, if this goes to all of the sellers, I would do seller all emails. If I have 9 sellers, all of their emails are going to be put right here in the to field. Let's say I always want to CC the primary agent. You don't have to do all emails because usually that's just one person, but we could. And then if you wanted to like BCC, I don't know, like a TC account, right? I mean, you can put hard-coded emails in there too. You're not limited, obviously, to a merge field code. The subject line will take any merge field code other than like grid and some of the other more advanced codes. But usually property full address is in there. Some people like to say, seller last name. to buyer last name. And so these are the types of cool things you can do within a subject. Auto attach files. So we talked briefly about when you add an attachment entry into an attachment template, they now become available to you here in the auto attach files area. So obviously executed contract comes up a lot. We've added that to a template. So now I have access to it here as an available auto attach file to a particular email. You're not limited to one, so I can just keep typing. If I want to do an amendment, if I want to do some sort of disclosure that I've added, then all of those things can be added here as part of the auto attach feature. The other thing that I'll point out, which is not really related to merge field codes, but somewhat, is you can also attach team files here. So what is a team file? If you've noticed on AFrame, there's actually a little menu option over here on the left, and it's called team files. Why would you have team files? Well, team files are typically something that's not related to a specific transaction. This would be something like know before you move, or utility contact information, and you have like a nice PDF printed out for something that you want them to view as an attachment, or like a lead-based paint pamphlet. These, since they've been uploaded to your team files, become available to you as an auto attach option. So if I come down here, you'll notice it starts the team files, and I can just start typing. So if I want to do that lead-based paint addendum, it'll come up. And so you'll see here, I've got 3 merge field attachments plus a team file, which can make this pretty convenient. So you don't have to upload a blank PDF to every transaction just to get it in an email template. And then last but not least, I will point out this works just like live merge field code. So as you start to type, those things will be displayed in there. I won't bore you with all this, but just know once you hit that $, all of those things will come up. Just start typing, and then that appropriate merge field code should come up. If you are over here on the left, we do have this insert button. So if you're here and want to insert what you see, you just click the insert button, and it matches where you are in the cursor. So if the cursor is down here and I click insert, it's going to go right where your cursor was. So just a little tip there. And let's see where we are. Okay, so we demoed the email template. Let's go inside a transaction. We'll just kind of demonstrate. I want to show you sort of a full suite of merge field codes and just point out a couple things that we've talked about so far. So let's jump into a transaction. And in this particular transaction, I've actually added some data under the transaction info listing details group. I've applied a couple tasks. I've uploaded a few attachments, one of which is like an executed contract. I've added some dates here, and then a few participants. So if we go to, let's just look at a template that I've created with a number of merge field codes. And I'm going to choose a letter so we can kind of get a bigger screen here. But you'll notice here, I've got all kinds of merge field codes, and I want to kind of just show a couple of these things so you're aware of them. So up here at top, these are sort of our system merge field codes. So if you want your company name to appear, these are all $signs. So this would be $team company. So the $team company would print Compass here. The user first name would be the current user. So if I'm logged in and actually using it, it's going to be my name. If Betsy is logged in as a TC and she's there, it's going to be obviously the current user's name. This is sometimes good for email signatures, right? So if you have an email template that says thanks so-and-so, a lot of times you want it to be you and not a static member of your team. The first names I talked about briefly, I just want to reiterate that these first names, plural, will join every seller or every buyer or every escrow agent or whichever participant you choose, and those will all be listed there with a comma and then an and symbol tacked on. These are a couple of merge field codes I just wanted to point out. So if you're one who likes to use the buyer and seller portal link, the managed agent portal link, then you do have 3 options for that. You do have a buyer seller portal link, which will insert a specific portal link for that transaction. You'll notice the transaction ID here on the end. You've got one for the managed agent portal link, and this is a more of a generic one. So you can use that in any email template that you like. It's not tied to a specific person. That sort of helps if you don't want to get confused and accidentally send one of these links to the wrong person. It's not the end of the world, but this is certainly a safer play. Then we have a merge field code for the agent portal link of an actual agent, right? Primary agent, co-agent. And you'll notice what it does is it just sort of adds a little qualifier variable that will automatically bring up Burton Rhodes' login. If it's not Burton Rhodes and it goes to somebody else, it's not a big deal. They just click, this is not me, and then it goes back to the start where they could actually log in if they had received this first link.
I want to interrupt the general portal link for the managed agent. They can search it by their email. So if you send it to them, they can type in their own email and it'll pull up.
Yeah, right.
So that's how they can find theirs.
That's a great point. Right. So if you send them the generic one, that's how you look it up, which makes it really nice. Okay, so a couple of other things. Obviously, list price, contract price, transaction side, all of this stuff you may be familiar with. Just know that you can pull in just about any bit of data in a transaction and then put that into an email template in some way. If you can't, let us know, but I'm pretty sure every bit of data pretty much, minus a couple things, which I'm going to address in a second, that I know some people have been screaming for, but I'll talk about that in a second. We talked about closing dates and their suffixes. You can see how these present. If it's actually a range, it'll say February 28th from 1 to 1:30. If there is no range, meaning it's a 0-minute appointment rather than a 30-minute appointment, it'll just say 1 p.m. Again, this is the start date. You can isolate the time itself. You've got the ordinal, and then you've got the location. And then here we talked about, the formulas, 3 business days. And so you can see how this would sort of map out in a sentence, right? The earnest money of, and then $10,000. This would be the field earnest money, which is an amount, is due 3 business days, federal holidays, after the effective date on Thursday, October 24th. So this is sort of a all-inclusive example of how you would use a field, a formula, and then an actual ordinal date. The other thing here is I just wanted to point out that you can certainly format merge field codes. So in your email templates, if you want to highlight, a merge field code, you can certainly do that. I've put this number in red. I highlighted Helen's name with a background. You're certainly, you can really use whatever formatting you want. So let's go into, I wanted to demonstrate the field group list and field group grid. So if you look at this merge field code, this is actually $field group _. And then I am actually pulling all of the group listing details and I want it in a list format. So this actually would not appear. I just put that in there so you would know. But this would be what that one merge field code would print out for you in an email. So you can see how much of a time saver that could be, especially if you've organized your fields in such a way that all of your listing details you want to print out in a particular email. Or you could maybe say, okay, I want actually to organize my contract details group in such a way that I can group these, put these in a grid, and fire those off in an email template. The grid format is the same information. It's just formatted slightly different, a little more space saving, if you will. So we've actually got sort of a table here. See how it sort of lays this out. So if you prefer that, then that's another option you can use. This just gives you an example of an actual field. Go ahead.
One thing that I always like to point out to people is it will list the data that is filled in. So if you have 10 fields that don't have information, it's not going to leave a blank field.
Correct. Good point. Okay.
So it makes it really pretty.
Yes. Okay. So like, for example, I have instructions, listing other info, and transaction source, which are blank. They did not appear here, which is good. If you want really something to be in there, you can certainly do like a little dash. And then, that would appear as a dash and wherever you want it. So if you want that data in there, then there's some workarounds, little hacks here and there. Let's see, this is actually just to demonstrate you can do individual fields. And then these are some other fun little things, right? Primary agent, first name, last name, portal link, we talked about. We do have merge field codes for your primary agent's profile photo and also their logo. So if you wanted to insert those into an email, you could. We certainly have merge field codes for the co-agent assistant one, which is TC1 for most of you. Again, closers. We also have the prefix card. I think I may have missed that in the beginning, but the card suffix is actually pretty cool. You can use that for any role that you like. So this is actually the $ closer card. So it takes the closer and puts all of their information in one little spot. If I wanted to do like seller card, you'll notice that it prints out all of the sellers and, sort of a nice little row like that. So the cards can come in handy if you want to print that information out in some kind of email. Below, we've got transaction events. We pointed to this earlier in sort of the beginning, but transaction events is going to take all of your dates in a transaction and pop those in an email. Now, the transaction events here, it would look like this, actually. So it just takes the date and then obviously the date label and then puts the date out to the side. One little tidbit or tip here is, and again, I talked about this earlier, but the suffix for the agent portal can be very helpful. So for example, again, you have transaction events, but you only want a subset of those dates. You'll notice that the agent portal dates are going to be, there's actually just one less date that's printed out here. And where do you assign the agent portal visibility? Most of you know this, but if you don't, I'm going to go to dates. You'll notice over here, this is your agent portal button, and this is your buyer and seller portal. So as I uncheck these, if I only wanted my agent, for example, to see the closing date, I could change all of those, go back here, and you'll see actually what would happen with transaction portal. Oh, do I need to save? We shall see if this will work. Transaction events. Huh. Well, we'll have to see why that's not working. Normally it does. Maybe I'm doing something wrong.
You might have to reopen your letter again.
Oh, that might be right. Okay, well, I'm not going to go that far yet. So we also have transaction participants. So that's another merge field code that's a little more advanced. This transaction participants will print out basically cards for everybody in a grid format. And again, this works the same way, right? So you'll notice this one doesn't have the suffix for agent portal, but you've got buyer and seller, but specifically agent on the other side. And then you'll see this one down here. Actually, I'll skip down. This one says buyer and seller portal. We've actually hidden the agent on the other side in this list because we don't want that available to the buyer and seller. The buyer and seller does not need to be calling the agent on the other side. That's information we don't want to share. So you can see here that this suffix has hidden that particular entry. One I will point out is what's the difference between transaction participants and users and transaction participants. Transaction participants and users will add your agent and yourself to this list. So if you look at a transaction itself, under the participants tab, you'll notice there's sort of two sections. You've got this section up here, which is sort of your team or users, if you will. And then down here, we have all of the participants, right, that we've added that really aren't sort of part of your team. So the and users part will obviously add the bottom section, but it will tack on all of the information up at the top. So that's what that and users does. And I think that just about covers most of the merge field code. So, a lot of this is not rocket science, but it does help to get sort of a general overview of how all these merge field codes can be used, what the prefixes mean, what the suffixes mean, and then sort of point out, again, or understand how a lot of these can be combined where you can say first names, and then it will print all of the first names for your sellers. And then some of those more advanced merge field codes, which can be helpful, like, transaction participants or transaction events, all of that. So again, that is our deep dive into merge field codes for A-frame. Are there any questions out there, Morgan? Looks like hopefully people have.
Hi, Burton, this is Renee. I have a question for you. This
please.
is good stuff. Thank you. Somewhat related but separate. Looking at how you can do these grids and lists now has my mind racing about how I might want to organize my fields a little bit differently in the custom field area. I haven't noticed an easy way once I create a field, how to move it to another section, which, I hate to delete it because then I lose all of that data for all of my transactions. So for example, so can you move it between actual groups and everything?
Yes.
Oh, see, I've always looked to the right. So, okay, perfect. That's what I
Love
wanted.
it that we can check that box for you. Yes, that was easy. So yes, so you check them off. And sometimes you might be hidden, right? If you're way down here, the actions, you got to come back up to the top and say, okay, I want to move these 5 fields. And it shows you which fields you're moving. And then you can say, I actually want them in a different collection altogether. And then this will refresh the groups for you. So if I click that and then I go, nope, I want to go over here, I've got to reselect what group, because obviously a group is under a collection. They can't. So yeah, this is how you would move those. Easy.
Perfect. Thank you.
Of course.
And I think Pam has a question too.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I have a question about merge fields for inspectors or participants.
Sure.
What I like to do is I have the different agents like me to send their top 3 inspectors. And I'm just trying to figure out a way how to insert that with hyperlinks into a field, or I just can't figure it out.
That's a good question because it's agent specific.
Yes.
Rather than sort of account wide specific.
Yes.
I would say the team fields area.
The team files area.
Team files, sorry,
Yeah.
the team files would be a great one.
You could, right? Like you could do a Word document, print it to a PDF, and then upload that to, something that looks nice. You could make it, formatted really nice. It'd be just a one pager. And then you can attach that.
You can
But
also
nothing
make
in
it
like the
public.
body of an email.
And you can make the file public to get the URL, and you could put that in the email as well.
Yeah,
If you wanted to.
it doesn't get it in the email body unless you do the link. But that is, a little bit of a workaround. It's not exactly what you're talking about. The other option, if you really want it in the email, is you would add all 3 of those, right? As an inspector. The reason why that's probably not preferred is now you've added them as participants, and what if they choose a 4th inspector that's not even on your list?
Fair. Yeah.
Or, of course, they choose one of the 3 and the other 2 are there and you don't really know which one at this point. So, yeah, that is just outside the feature set that A-frame offers, unless you start to use those team files and then have a specific file for that particular agent. And just so you understand what Morgan was alluding to, if you have a neighborhood, let's see, like, great example. This is a vendor referral list, right? So if you had uploaded this, you can actually make this public.
Yeah.
And then this actually has a public link, and you could put that link inside an email template.
Got it.
So again, it's not attached anymore. And that link's long. You could make it more like view inspectors that we like. And then of course, add the link that way.
Gotcha.
If you did that, then this becomes linkable, and then it would bring up that PDF right when they
and I could make those for each agent and use that link too, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I have one other question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
Thanks. So in the oh my goodness, I'm not going to think of the right name. I'm struggling. You just uploaded 2,600 transactions for me, so I'm like babbling like a fool.
Right.
In the transaction, when you're on the here, let me jump in there really quick. On the information tab on the left, I would pay really good money to have calendar drop menus there.
Okay, so we don't have dates in here
I
for a
know.
reason. Because dates should be here. They absolutely should be here. If you are putting dates in your information section, you're doing it wrong, or you're swimming upstream. Now, why would you not put dates in the information section? Well, they don't sync with your calendar. You can't use them as a formula. There's really no functionality to the date when you put it in the info section. And that's why we offer them here, because now you've got auto adjusting, you've got the actual dates all in one place. You also have your dates over here. You have your dates on the daily focus. If you're not putting dates here, again, like I said, you're swimming upstream. I think you need to sort of buy into
Yeah.
the concept.
And you can turn off the visibility too. So if you didn't want the agent to see a certain date, you can turn off the visibility. And
Yeah,
it has its own custom merge field code already.
Yes. So
Yeah.
much like Renee, I'm over here going, I'm rethinking a few things.
yeah, yeah. There's lots of other platforms out there that put all of their dates in the custom fields area, and that's probably where your head is. We
Yeah.
just have a different spot to put them. So hopefully that paradigm shift is not too hard for you, but if you do it, I think you'll be set up for success in the long run.
It might be for my team, but they'll do what I tell them anyway.
Okay.
Just
There you
kidding.
go.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, of course. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking to redo my info tab, the custom fields.
Uh-huh.
If I have currently running transactions or previous closed transactions where maybe some of those fields had information and now I remove them, is it being removed from all of my current transactions or just
It
upcoming?
will. So normal templates don't work like that.
Mhm.
But we warn you on the other side. So if I come in here and want to edit this and delete it, it's going to say, wait a tick. You're about to remove data from all transactions that contain these fields. This action cannot be done. So yes, from a field perspective, because they're custom fields, the way the data is stored in our database, it is removed from all past transactions themselves. Now,
Okay.
what would be your workaround? Well, if you really didn't want to lose that data, you could create maybe a collection that's
A new
called,
collection is what I was thinking. Yeah.
and then
Okay.
you could
Perfect.
pull those fields into your archive area.
Okay.
That might be a good way to solve that. But yes, that is a limitation of the custom fields. Now there is a feature that's on our to-do list that some people have a particular, let's say, lockbox information is a text field. Well, the challenge with a text field is it limits you to, I think, maybe 200 characters, 100 characters, something like that. And if you want that field to be larger, there is a feature request that would allow you to change this to at least a larger field. That's coming. It's not here yet, but that should be it's possible. It's just not possible yet. The deleting of fields is not possible just with the way our architecture works. So that's why that's there. But good question on that.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
There's one thing that I wrote down that popped up in my head for a lot of TCs that do multiple states.
Mhm.
And they might need multiple date templates. One thing to point out, or I guess to bring to their mind, is you could create a date template for each state that you're working under and keep the merge field code the same, for example, for inspection period. You can keep that merge field code the same, so you don't have two inspection period custom merge field codes, but just change the title for whatever the state represents. So, like this one's inspection period, but some are like inspection resolution period. But you can keep that inspection period the same, so you don't have multiple inspection period different codes, I should say.
Yeah.
They can
No,
work
that's-
together no matter what email template you use or task template that you use that's referring to that inspection period code. It'll work no matter what date template you use.
Yeah, and a good that's a good point. So if I wanted to create, let's say I'm in Texas, but now I'm also working in Florida, and they're fairly similar, I can actually copy this template, and I'll just say, you know, FLA. But you'll notice all these merge field codes are the same. So you can, I'll call it duplicate merge field codes within your templates. Just when you're in a transaction, you can't duplicate because it's impossible to duplicate. Anyway, yes, that's a great point. So if you have task templates or other email templates that use these in sort of a format and you want to reuse templates, you or merge field code.
And same for the attachment templates. Jessica in the chat said it works, asked if it works the same for attachments, the same thing.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
use your own custom merge field code, but you can change that title how you want.
Yeah. The only thing that has to be fairly unique are going to be the field definitions. So if you end up saying, okay, I want contract info for Texas, but I also want another group for Florida. If you have financing, you're going to want to do financing FLA or financing something. Or you could do F Florida finance. So the fields, they definitely have to be unique across definitions, collections, groups, but everything else you can duplicate and it should work just fine. So good point. Okay, anybody else have a question? We'll briefly show you this, like sort of forgot as it pertains to merge field codes. We do have these closing summaries. This closing summary is nothing more than a merge field code, just a really big email template with merge field codes in them. So if you're curious about what you can do with merge field codes, this is a great example of all of the, information you can get into an email with just a click of a button. For those who are asking, because we get this a lot, if you don't want this in the body, you simply would create the letter and then attach it to the email. And now I've got an email with the closing summary as a PDF. So that's how you sort of bridge the gap from turning an email template into an attachment and then actually using an email itself. So anyway.
And the closing template is edible in your email template area.
Oh, yes, of course. When you come into one of these guys, ooh, where did we go? There we are. So if I come in here and do the closing summary, you can change anything you want. Like if this is wrong or want to just remove a bit of data, edit this however you want. If you don't want to delete that entire table and then go ahead and attach it, that's another way you can do that. But again, email templates are always editable. You're never locked into what you do in the templates, which is always nice. So, and I see David loving his task batching. So. Okay, I think that we've covered a lot of information. We're just over 60 minutes here. So anyway, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today and participating. Hopefully this gave you a better understanding of how merge field codes work. There's a lot of functionality there. We'll have more of these and take a different topic and really do some deep dives on a lot of this. But again, hopefully this was helpful and wish you guys the best of luck. Thanks for joining us today.
Huge thank you to both of you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see all you guys. Take care.